There is mercy and redemption. O Israel, put your hope in me. There is mercy and redemption.
That's Out of the Depths, Psalm 130 by James Block, one of the non-ethnic Jews, if you know what I mean. Not like a blood Israelite, but nevertheless redeemed by Messiah and follows the Jewish ways. Some very interesting news. Pope watch alert. Hypocrites never prosper. Even the Quran says that, man. Pope at Angelus. May we improve our capacity to forgive. And when I first saw a thing about the Pope, and he was saying that we need to all unite and everything, and I was praying, and he said he's praying for everyone and we should pray for him. So I did used to pray for him, and that he could be forgiven for all the terrible things the Catholic Church have done, molesting little kids and changing the day of the Sabbath and things like that. And then the higher himself told me, no, don't pray for him anymore, he's beyond redemption. Addressing the faithful gathered on the feast of St. Stephen, Pope Francis urges us to remember the martyrs, past and present, and especially St. Stephen's, in order to learn from his capacity to forgive. I'd agree with that. We should remember the martyrs, and there's martyrs every day. There's martyrs in Nigeria. One Christian is killed in Nigeria every 2 hours. St. Stephen, if I remember right, I think that was when Apostle Paul held the coats, before, when he was still called Saul, and they stoned him to death. And there's a nice lyric about it. Isaiah Eli, E-L-I. He hasn't been on YouTube for a while. I've been praying for him a few times. Kind of hip-hop, spoken word music. He said, you can stone me like Stephen, even then I'll die believing. I see heaven open, Jesus at the right hand, seated with a crown or two, saying, I've got crowns for you. By Francesca Merlo, and that's on Vatican News. During his Angelus prayer for the feast of St. Stephen, Pope Francis addressed the faithful gathered in St. Peter's Square and reminded them that the liturgy that helped us welcome the Nativity of the Lord on Sunday extends until the 1st of January, the 8 days of the octave of Christmas. What a copycat he is, man. We've just had the 8 days of Hanukkah, Feast of Dedications, Days of Martyrdom. Yet he noted that these same 8 days commemorate some dramatic figures of martyred saints, and St. Stephen obviously is a proper saint, but it's not up to him to say he was a saint. Do you know what I mean? He's probably the false prophet, and he wants to say he was a saint. Some of them are right, like Mary Magdalene, Stephen, you know, but other people, like Mother Teresa, I know everyone thinks that she's wonderful, and she did do and say a lot of charity in that, but I don't think she was saved because she didn't know who Messiah was, and she even said herself she doubts, you know. Today, Monday, St. Stephen, the first Christian martyr, and on Wednesday, the Holy Innocents, the infants killed by King Herod for fear that Yeshua would take away his throne. Obviously, he says Jesus, his pagan word, his white Jesus, but I say Yeshua. In short, the Pope said, the liturgy really seems to want to steer us away from the world of lights, lunches and gifts in which we might indulge somewhat in these days. Pope Francis went on to explain that Christmas is not the fairy tale of the birth of a king, but the coming of the Saviour. He frees us from evil by taking upon himself our evil, selfishness, sin and death. And like I've been saying, being told to warn people, and a lot of people have totally disregarded me, you know, people that should know better, that their blood is on their hands, you know. Once you've warned them a few times, you're told to dust the dirt of that village off your feet, and that it will be better for the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than it is for them, which is hard, but God is love. He says he's not willing that any should perish. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, Christmas is pagan. The day I celebrated was winter solstice, the darkest night of the year, when many pagans are celebrating. But we're celebrating the Immaculate Conception through the Ruach HaKodesh, her, the Holy Spirit, the seed, or whatever you want to call it, of Ahia, the great I Am, the name he gave Moses at the burning bush, into the womb of the Virgin Mary, or Miriam. And then Yeshua was actually born during the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, I'm going to leave that as 4:44. Okay, bye everyone. Shalom.